name is Sienna Hart, 28 years old. This morning I woke up to 27 missed calls and a single text from my dad. You didn't have to do that to the house. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't ask if the baby was okay. Just that. If you saw us a few months ago, you'd never guess we'd end up like this. We looked like one of those close-knit families people post about online. I lived with my husband in my parents' house, in the downstairs unit that used to be a storage space before Dad fixed it up for us. We had our own entrance, our own tiny kitchen, a cramped living area that always smelled faintly like laundry detergent and whatever my mom was cooking upstairs. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. And because it was family, I didn't think I had any reason not to trust them. My dad would joke constantly about being a grandpa. He'd pat my belly and say things like, "I'll build the crib myself, don't you worry," and "You two are lucky you have us. We'll make sure this baby has everything." My mom treated my pregnancy like a joint project. She'd sit next to me on the couch with her tablet open, scrolling Pinterest for baby shower themes, boho rainbows, wildflowers, woodland animals. She had boards for all of them. "We should do a neutral theme," she'd say, "just in case the next one is a boy." We were saving every cent we could. I was 7 months pregnant, still working part-time remotely, trying not to fall asleep at my laptop. My husband was working double shifts just to keep us afloat. We had a plan: live in my parents' house a little longer, at least until after the baby was born, get through the shower, buy the essentials, then slowly crawl our way into our own place. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Or at least I thought it was. The baby shower account was supposed to be a safety net. We sat at the kitchen table one evening, the real kitchen upstairs, not our tiny downstairs one, while Dad scrolled on his phone and Mom asked about invitation designs. "We should open a separate account," Dad suggested, "for the shower, the gender reveal, baby stuff. That way you won't accidentally spend it on bills." It sounded reasonable. He drove us to the bank, sat in the chair like he lived there. He told the banker it was a family account, that he'd be on it, just in case we needed help with paperwork later. He looked at me and said, "You know I've got your back, kiddo. This is just so I can step in if anything gets confusing." I didn't think twice. Why would I? We started putting money in, a little at a time. My husband's overtime, my side income, gift money from relatives who said, "Use this for the baby." Every time I saw the balance creep up, I felt like maybe we were actually going to pull this off. Then, one afternoon, I came home from a doctor's appointment and saw Kelsey in the driveway. She was jumping up and down like she'd just won the lottery. A brand new white Corolla sat parked at an angle, sunlight bouncing off the hood. There was a temporary license plate taped to the window with her name on it. My stomach dropped before my brain even caught up. She had her phone held high, taking selfies at every angle. "Luna," she squealed, hugging the front of the car. "My baby." My mom stood next to her, hands clasped like she was about to cry, smiling like this was the proudest moment of her life. My dad walked out from the garage beaming, keys swinging from his hand like a trophy. For a second, I thought maybe I'd stepped into the wrong driveway. Maybe this was some neighbor's car. But then my mom spotted me. "There she is," she said. "Isn't it beautiful?" I forced a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Wow," I said. "When did this happen?" "Just now," Dad said, chest puffed out. "Big surprise for Kels. We wanted to make sure she could get to school and work safely, you know. It's time she had some independence." Kelsey barely glanced at me, too busy capturing videos for her story. "It's perfect," she said. "I'm obsessed. I can't believe you guys did this." I stood there with my car keys in one hand and my appointment papers in the other, feeling the baby shift inside me, pressing against my ribs. I didn't ask how they paid for it. Not yet. I saved that question for when we got inside. Dad followed me upstairs later, still riding the high. He closed the door gently behind him, like this was going to be some sentimental talk. "Sienna," he said, "I wanted to tell you myself." I leaned against the counter. "Okay," I said, "tell me." He didn't look guilty, not even nervous. He looked proud. "We used the money from the account," he said. "The account?" I repeated, like I didn't know exactly which one he meant. "The baby shower savings," he clarified. "It was just sitting there. Kelsey actually needs the car. You'll be fine." That's what he said. "She actually needs it. You'll be fine." Like I was being selfish. Like a 16-year-old's first car was more important than a first-time mother preparing to bring a baby into the world. I opened my mouth, then shut it. My eyes burned, but no tears came. He waited for me to argue, to beg, to negotiate. He seemed almost ready for a fight he could win. I didn't give him one. I just nodded once, walked past him, and went downstairs to our unit. I closed the bedroom door, sat on the edge of the bed, and listened to the muffled sounds of Kelsey screaming happily in the driveway, taking pictures with her new car. Inside my chest, everything went quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before something breaks. I stared at the wall for a long time. My hand rested on my stomach without me realizing it. The baby pushed back, a tiny foot nudging my skin. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was apologizing to, myself, the baby, or the version of my dad I thought I knew. Then I stood up. I pulled out a suitcase and started packing. A few clothes, toiletries, anything I could grab quickly without thinking. I went to the closet, reached up to the shelf where we'd taped an envelope of cash, and took it down. On my phone, I logged into the savings account. I'd moved a little bit earlier, just in case. A quiet transfer into another account under my name only. Something told me not to tell him about it when I did it. Maybe I didn't trust him as much as I pretended to. Now I moved what little was left. His name was still on the original account, but not on the new one. I deleted everything that could link him to it. Email access, auto logins, gone. Then I went upstairs. In the main kitchen, there was a drawer by the fridge where my dad kept his spare keys, old checkbooks, and random, important documents he never organized. I pulled it open, grabbed everything inside, and dumped it into a trash bag. Checkbooks. I shredded by hand, page by page, until my fingers hurt and little pieces of paper clung to my skin. I flushed handfuls at a time. Petty? Maybe. But it felt right. By the time my husband pulled into the driveway, the suitcase was by the door. He stepped inside, saw my face, and didn't ask, "What happened?" He just asked, "Where are we going?" "We'll figure it out on the way," I said. We drove to the cheapest apartment we could find that didn't look like it would collapse in a storm. The leasing office smelled like old coffee and desperation. The unit they showed us smelled like dust and fried food from whoever lived there before. The blinds were crooked, the carpet was stained. The heater rattled when it kicked on. We signed the lease anyway. That first night, we didn't even have a bed. Just a blanket on the floor, a couple of pillows, and a half-eaten takeout box between us. My husband fell asleep almost instantly, completely drained. I lay there awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, one hand on my belly, and for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in my parents' house. I felt in control. The next morning, sunlight snuck through the broken blinds in thin, accusing lines. My phone buzzed when I plugged it back in. 27 missed calls, all from my dad. No calls from my mom, nothing from Kelsey. Just one text from him, sitting at the top of the list. "You didn't have to do that to the house." He didn't say what he meant exactly. The drawer, the missing documents, the locked-out access, the account he couldn't get into anymore. He didn't say my name. He didn't ask how I was. He was grieving his control, not his daughter. I didn't reply. But as I stared at that message, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever trust I had in him was gone. And in his mind, this wasn't the end. It was the opening shot. For a while after we left, it felt like we could finally breathe. The apartment was small, noisy, and the heater smelled like burnt dust every time it kicked on. But it was ours. No footsteps overhead, no doors swinging open without knocking, no voices carrying down the stairs telling us what we should do. We sat on the floor that first week, eating takeout from the same plastic containers, laughing at how terrible the blinds looked, how the sink tap squeaked, how the fridge hummed louder than the TV. My husband joked that our mattress on the floor made us minimalists. I joked that we were temporarily aesthetic. But at night, when he was asleep and the baby shifted under my ribs, the reality pressed in. We had almost nothing. A couple of bags of clothes, a laptop, some kitchen basics, and a baby coming whether we were ready or not. I started selling custom baby shower decorations online. It was ironic and a little painful, wrapping pastel banners and tiny favor tags in tissue paper for strangers who were about to have the celebration I'd planned for myself. But the orders helped, 20 here, 40 there, enough to keep us afloat a little longer. We found a secondhand couch on a classified site, a mattress someone was upgrading from, a wobbly kitchen table some stranger left on the curb with a free sign taped to it. We dragged it all up the stairs, piece by piece, breathless and sweating, and collapsed afterward, laughing because if we didn't, we'd cry. We were finally making our own decisions. We thought that meant we'd finally be left alone. The first time my dad showed up, I saw his truck before I heard the knock. I was folding tiny baby onesies on the couch. the TV murmuring some home renovation show in the background, when the familiar shape of his pickup crawled into view through the crooked blinds. I froze. He got out slowly, like he had all the time in the world. He didn't look around like someone visiting a new place. He looked up at the building, like he was inspecting damage. The knock came a minute later, then another. Then my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I let it ring. He tried again. Voicemail. Then a text. Sienna, open the door. We just want to talk. You're making this harder than it has to be. We stayed quiet. My husband sat on the floor beside me, hand resting on my belly. The baby kicked once, then again, as if sensing the tension. Eventually, the knocking stopped. The truck left. The next time, he brought my mom. I heard both their voices through the door, hers high and sharp, his low and insistent. They knocked for a full 10 minutes, like they thought they could out-stubborn us. You know we love you, my mom called through the door. You're overreacting. Our door isn't your boundary to test, my husband whispered, more to himself than to them. We didn't answer. After that, it became a routine. 2, sometimes 3 times a week, their truck would show up. Sometimes they brought food. Sometimes they just stood outside, knocking and texting and leaving voicemails. The calls and texts always sounded the same, like they'd rehearsed them. You're making this harder than it has to be. You're breaking this family apart. We're worried about you. We're just trying to help. They never once mentioned the car, never once mentioned the money they took, never once asked how the baby was doing or if I was feeling okay. It wasn't concern. It was control disguised as concern. They started slipping notes under the door. Long, dramatic letters written in my mother's looping handwriting. This isn't how we raised you. Family doesn't shut each other out. You're being manipulated. You're not yourself right now. Every word framed me as the problem, the emotional one, the fragile pregnant woman who just didn't understand how family decisions worked. Sometimes I read them. Sometimes I tore them in half without looking. Sometimes I just left them in a pile on the counter until my husband threw them away from me. Then one afternoon, everything shifted. There was a knock at the door, and I thought it was our grocery delivery. I was tired, my back hurting, my feet swollen, and I opened the door without checking. My dad stepped past me like he still owned the place. My mom followed, holding a grocery bag like it was a peace offering. Wow, my dad said, looking around. This neighborhood's rough. You really think this is better than home? He said home, like theirs, was the only one that counted. My mom headed straight for the kitchen and opened the fridge without asking. You don't have much in here, she said, clucking her tongue. What vitamins are you taking? Are you getting enough protein? You know stress isn't good for the baby. She said stress like I'd invented it myself. I didn't invite you in, I said quietly. My dad ignored that. We talked to a friend at church, he said. They said you're just going through a phase. Once the baby comes, you'll see you can't do this without us. I looked at him, really looked at him. The man who opened the baby savings account for us. The man who told the banker he just needed his name on it for paperwork. The man who used it to buy his youngest daughter a car and still thought he was the victim. You have 5 minutes, I said. Then I want you gone. My mother's head snapped around. Sienna, don't be like that, she said. We drove all this way. You have 5 minutes, I repeated. They acted like I'd slapped them, like I was the one breaking into their place and going through their fridge. See? My dad muttered to my mom as he headed toward the door. She's not thinking straight. It's the hormones. After they left, my husband installed a new chain on the door. He measured it twice, drilled the holes himself, slid the chain back and forth, testing it, his jaw clenched. That's not going to stop them from knocking, I said, watching. No, he replied, but it will stop them from walking in like they live here. Kelsey kept posting photos with the car. She named it Luna. There were videos of her driving with her friends. Iced coffees and cup holders, music blasting while she sang into the camera, caption after caption about independence and glow-ups. One post had a before and after, her old bus stop photo, and then her leaning against Luna in the driveway, hair done, outfit perfectly styled. Finally free, the caption read. Independence looks good on me. Independence, paid for with the money we'd saved for a child who wasn't even born yet. My parents switched tones seamlessly. To anyone who asked, they said, Kelsey needed the car for her mental independence. It's an investment in her future. We're just helping her be responsible. They never mentioned the account. They never mentioned that investment came from their pregnant daughter's savings. Meanwhile, their visits got weirder. Once, I peeked through the blinds and saw them just sitting in their truck. They didn't come up. They didn't knock. They just sat there for almost an hour, watching the building, waiting. It felt like being studied. When we stopped answering the door completely, they started leaving things. a plastic bag with vitamins, a pack of baby wipes, formula coupons. One day, we found a used baby monitor from what had to be the early 2000s, the kind with the long antenna and yellowed plastic. My husband didn't let it sit on the counter. He picked it up by the cord and dropped it straight into the trash. "I'm not plugging their eyes and ears into our wall," he said. I laughed, but my chest felt tight. Then they crossed a line I hadn't even thought to draw yet. I came home from a doctor's appointment one afternoon, tired and dizzy. The sun was too bright, the air too thick. All I wanted was to lie down for 10 minutes. When I turned the corner into the parking lot, I saw them. My dad stood next to our landlord, hands in his pockets, casual, like they were old friends catching up. "And just want to make sure everything's up to code," he was saying. "You know how it is. Young people, babies. We're just worried about safety." The landlord looked uncomfortable, glancing between him and the building. I got out of the car slowly. My hands were shaking. "Everything okay?" the landlord asked when he spotted me. I walked toward them, the grocery bag cutting into my fingers. "We're fine," I said. "This is my place. Whatever conversation you're having about me, you can stop now." My dad turned, plastering on a smile like we'd run into each other at the mall. "Hey, kiddo," he said. "Didn't know you'd be back so soon." The landlord cleared his throat. "I'm going to head out," he said. "Just wanted to confirm where the boundaries are here." "Here's the boundary," I said. "If he doesn't live here, he doesn't get to ask questions about me." That night I didn't sleep. I lay on the mattress, one hand on my belly, the other gripping my phone, even though I'd turned all the sounds off. The room felt smaller. The walls felt closer. Every creak of the building sounded like footsteps. I thought leaving the house meant they'd have no hold on us anymore, that once we weren't under their roof, we'd finally be safe. I was wrong. They didn't want to fix things. They wanted their control back. After the landlord incident, everything escalated. They started calling from different numbers. I'd block one, and another would appear. They sent messages through old family friends. My aunt called one afternoon, voice sweet as syrup. "You're going to have a baby soon," she said. "Don't you want your family around you?" I hung up without answering. Another day, my mom showed up with a casserole dish and a handwritten list of budget suggestions. Things like cut streaming services, buy cheaper diapers, ask dad for help with insurance. She knocked and knocked. When we didn't answer, she left the dish and letter on the doormat. I didn't touch the food. I tossed the note in the trash. She came back the next day asking why we hadn't said thank you. "We're trying to support you," she said. "You're making it impossible." My husband finally stepped into the hallway. "We're not interested in your support," he said calmly. "Please don't come back." They acted like he'd slapped them. "You're filling her head with this," my dad muttered. "She wouldn't be acting like this on her own." They left eventually, but not before my mom said loudly, "Soon you'll realize you can't do this without us." The irony was disgusting. They acted like we'd cut them off out of nowhere, like we were punishing them for no reason, like we were cruel for wanting space from the people who emptied our account and then demanded gratitude. Every time they spoke, it always came back to them. Their embarrassment, their hurt, their sacrifice, their version of necessity. Never the baby, never my health, never the nights I lay awake wondering how we'd afford diapers and rent at the same time. Kelsey, meanwhile, was thriving in her curated world, posting videos of herself driving around with friends, stopping for iced coffee after school, blasting music in the driveway and recording little dances for social media. She did a glow-up video with clips from before she had the car and after, as if Luna had transformed her into someone new and untouchable. In the background of one of the videos, I could see my parents' house, the driveway I used to pull into after long shifts. My dad's truck, my mom's plants on the porch. It stung. It also told me everything I needed to know. They had replaced our future with her aesthetic, and they didn't even see the difference. They kept coming, kept pushing, kept showing up with their unsolicited advice. Once, they dropped off a bag of newborn clothes with clearance tags still attached. My mom made a point of saying she'd helped because I probably couldn't afford the nicer brands right now. My dad started giving budgeting tips. He tried to tell my husband how to handle utility bills, as if we were constantly defaulting. We weren't late on a single one. They weren't helping. They were inspecting. We started keeping the blinds closed all the time. I hated how paranoid it made me feel, like I was hiding in my own life. But every time light spilled through the slats, I imagined their truck parked outside, imagined them watching, waiting. The pressure built slowly, like a storm hanging over the building that refused to break. I snapped more, over little things. My husband would put the wrong spoon in the wrong drawer, and I'd feel my throat tighten. I cried at night, quietly, so I wouldn't wake him. I hated that even here, even now, they still had this much power over me. They're not here, my husband would say, rubbing my back. They don't get to live in your head if they're not paying rent. They already took rent, I whispered back, and a down payment. One evening, he sat me down at the rickety kitchen table. If you want to move cities, I'll start looking tomorrow, he said. We'll find a way. The idea terrified me. My doctor was here. My remote job was tied to this state. The lease was still new. The thought of ripping everything up and starting over again made my head spin. No, I told him. We'll handle it. I can handle it. That was my mistake. Because the next week, they came inside again. And this time, I knew that the next line they crossed, I wouldn't be the one bending. They slipped inside so quietly that I didn't even realize they were in my apartment until I heard something rustling in the kitchen. I had left the door unlocked for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Just long enough to haul a couple of grocery bags from the car up the stairs. My back was aching, ankles swollen, the baby sitting heavy and low. I'd set the bags down on the counter, stepped toward the bedroom to switch into something more comfortable, and plastic crinkled. A bag thumped on the counter, then my mother's voice. These were on sale. I figured she'd need them. My skin went cold. I walked back into the kitchen, and there she was, standing under the dim yellow light like she belonged there. She had a plastic bag filled with baby items, diapers, a can of formula, some off-brand pacifiers, and she was unloading them onto the counter like this was still her home. My dad came in behind her, brushing crumbs off his shirt, looking around like he owned the place. Front door was open, he said casually. You need to be more careful. This isn't a good neighborhood. My jaw tightened. I didn't move, didn't speak, just watched them. My mom held up a jar of jarred baby food like she was making an offering. You should start stocking up. Prices are going up, she said. Do you even have a plan for how to manage? I cut her off. Why are you here? She blinked at me like she didn't understand the question. We're helping, she said. Someone has to. My father nodded, folding his arms like a disappointed landlord. Place looks cluttered, he said. It's only going to get worse once the baby comes. You sure you can keep up with all this? I could feel something in me crack, not loudly or sharply, but slowly. A hairline fracture turning into a fault line. I didn't invite you in, I said quietly. My mom frowned, setting down a box of puffy organic snacks. Why are you being like this? We're just trying to... No, I said, you're not. My dad took a step forward, pointing toward the hallway. You're not thinking clearly. You're overwhelmed. You should let your mother help. She knows what she's doing. I took a slow breath. My hands started shaking, not from fear, but from something colder, cleaner. Get out, I said. My mother's mouth dropped open slightly, as if I'd slapped her. What? She whispered. You heard her, my dad snapped. This is the hormones talking. Hormones didn't steal from me, I shot back. Hormones didn't empty an account meant for my baby. Hormones didn't spend it on a car and then show up here pretending to check the fridge like I'm a child. Silence. My mom's eyes darted between the fridge and the floor. Dad's mouth tightened. You're being dramatic, he said. You have 5 minutes, I said calmly. Then I call the police. My father's face twisted in disbelief. You wouldn't dare. My husband walked in at that exact moment, his work shirt damp with sweat, hair messy, exhaustion on every inch of his face. He took one look at my expression, at the bags on the counter, at my parents inside our apartment again. And he didn't raise his voice. He didn't push, he didn't argue. He just said, you need to leave. My dad opened his mouth, but my husband stepped closer, shoulders firm, voice low. You need to leave, now. For a moment, I thought my father was going to puff his chest out, throw some threat, some I-raised-her rubbish he always used to assert dominance. But he saw something in my husband's face that made him stop. They walked out. My mother hesitated at the threshold. Sienna, you're not thinking... I closed the door. My husband locked it. Then he locked the chain. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't pace, or rant, or replay the conversation in my head. I sat on the couch, lights off, baby shifting inside me, and felt something shift with him. Something fundamental. Something final. Their next move wasn't slow. It was loud. At first, nothing happened. No knocks, no notes under the door, no calls or texts. The silence felt eerie, like the moment before a glass falls off a table and shatters. I should have known better. Silence is never peace with people like them. It's strategy. The next blow came from a place I didn't expect. Kelsey. She posted a short video, a dramatic, moody clip of her sitting inside the Corolla with sad music playing in the background, mascara smudged, tears streaking down her face. The caption, I miss my sister. I don't know why she hates me. I didn't ask for any of this. She tagged me, publicly. The comments poured in. You didn't do anything wrong, Kels. Some people just get jealous. She'll come around. You're the good one. Family isn't complicated unless someone chooses drama. Even a couple of distant cousins chimed in. Your sister's always been sensitive. Sensitive. That word hit me harder than the betrayal ever did. My aunt called the next morning, syrupy sweet. You're about to have a baby, she said. Don't you want your family around you? Don't you want support during such a vulnerable time? I hung up without replying. Still, I braced myself for what I knew would follow. And it came faster than I expected. I was sitting in my OB/GYN's waiting room later that week, reading through my birth plan one more time, trying to feel prepared, grounded, sane. Then I heard my name. I looked up. My parents stood at the front desk. My mom had her purse clutched in both hands like she expected applause. My father had that proud dad half smile he used to wear when he forgot my birthday and pretended he hadn't. My body went cold. My pulse pounded in my ears. I felt my breath catch somewhere between my ribs. I stood, walked straight down the hallway. Didn't look at them. Didn't speak. The receptionist looked confused but didn't ask. My nurse took one look at my face and pulled me into an exam room early. I didn't cry. Not then. It was worse than that. I felt nothing. A deep, suffocating numbness I'd never felt before. When I got home, I locked the door, turned off my phone, sat in silence. I thought I'd cut them off. I thought I'd made myself clear. But showing up at a medical appointment? That wasn't concern. That was stalking, and I was done. I waited until my hands stopped shaking before I dialed their number. My mom picked up on speaker. I could hear both of them breathing, like they'd been waiting for me to break. I need you to listen, I said. Silence. You're no longer welcome in my life. Not at my home, not at my appointments, not at the hospital, not in my inbox, not anywhere. My mother made a small noise like she wanted to interrupt. I didn't let her. I don't want gifts. I don't want advice. I don't want surprises. The only way back is a full apology for everything. Not just the money, not just the car, everything. A long, smothering pause. Then my dad said it, calm and dismissive. You don't mean that. I hung up. That night they came back. They pounded on the door, yelling like none of this had consequences. We're just trying to help. You can't shut us out forever. You're going to regret this. My husband stood with his hand on the deadbolt. Leave, he said, or we're calling the police. They didn't move. My mom shouted something I will never forget. If something happens to that baby, you'll regret cutting off the only people who could have helped you. I opened the door just enough to slide the chain into place. My father leaned in. My mother's eyes were wild. I didn't say a word. Not one. I closed the door, locked it, leaned against it until my knees stopped shaking. When my husband got home later, he didn't need an explanation. He opened the family group chat, the one they used to send morning quotes and fake cheerful updates, and typed, "From this moment forward, if either of you contacts us again in any way, we will file a restraining order. This is not a threat. It's a promise." He left the group. I did too. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, thick, final. And for the first time, I understood something. They weren't going to disappear. Not truly, not forever. They were just waiting for a new angle, a new opportunity, a new way back in. I didn't know where it would come from. But when it finally knocked, it wasn't my parents. It was Kelsey, without the car, without her phone, without the performance. And nothing about her face looked like the girl who'd named a Corolla Luna for likes. Kelsey stood on the other side of the door like she wasn't sure she was allowed to exist there. No mascara streaks, no dramatic lighting, no Luna keys dangling from her fingers, no phone held up for a sad girl monologue. Just a hoodie too big for her, sleeves pulled over her hands, and a reusable grocery bag hanging limply from her wrist. For a moment, I didn't open the door wider. I just looked at her through the crack, my heart pounding, even though this was the one person I didn't expect to see standing there. She cleared her throat, her voice small. "Can I come in? Just for a minute? I'm alone. They don't know I'm here." That part, "they don't know I'm here," hit harder than anything else. I opened the door wider, not fully, just enough for her to slip inside. She passed me like a startled animal, carefully, quietly, her eyes flicking around the apartment like she was afraid something in it might shatter. She didn't sit, didn't take off her shoes, didn't walk toward the couch. She just stood there, clutching the grocery bag like it was a life raft. I didn't say anything. I didn't offer her water or ask what she wanted. I just waited. She swallowed hard. When she spoke, her voice was rough around the edges, like she'd been crying for a long time before she even got here. I'm sorry. Not dramatic, not rehearsed, not the shiny apology you give on video for clout. Just soft, uneven, real. She looked down at the bag. I brought a couple of things, she said quietly. I know it's not all of it, but it's something. She handed it to me, like she wasn't sure if I'd take it. Inside were baby wipes, a little gray stuffed elephant, and a folded note with my name written in her handwriting. Nothing extravagant. No price tags. No attempts to buy favor. Just a bag from a girl trying to draw a line between who she'd been told to be and who she wanted to become. I set it on the counter without opening the note. Mom and Dad think you'll come back, she said. They think you're just upset, and that once the baby's here, you'll realize you need them. Do they really believe that? I asked. She nodded, chewing the inside of her cheek. They think you're being dramatic, she said. They think your husband is controlling you. They think you're breaking the family for no reason. Of course they did. Kelsey's voice dropped even lower. They don't talk about the money, she said, or the car, or the account, or the fights. They talk about how embarrassed they are, how hard it is for them, how you ruined everything. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. She kept going. I believe them, she whispered. At first, because it was easier, because I got a car out of it, because I liked being the one they cared about for once. That admission wasn't cruel. It was honest, painfully honest. But after you left, she said, after the house got quiet and everything got weird, I started hearing things. Stuff they said when they thought I wasn't listening. About you, about him, about the baby. Her eyes watered, but she blinked it away. They said they were waiting for you to fail, she continued. That once the baby came and you got overwhelmed, you'd be calling them day and night, that you'd realize you couldn't handle it. My jaw tightened. I didn't interrupt. She needed to say it. They said your pregnancy was making you irrational, that you were too emotional to make decisions, that you were going to ruin your life if they didn't step in. She paused. And the worst part? She whispered. I didn't want to believe them, but I didn't want to believe you either. Because if I did, then I'd have to admit that the people raising me could do something that awful. That landed heavier than anything else. We stood there in silence for a long moment. Then she took a deep breath and actually sat, on the edge of the couch like she was afraid the cushions might reject her. I didn't know the money came from you, she said. Not at first. They made it sound like it was extra, like you offered, like you didn't need it. I nodded once. And after that, she let out a shaky breath. Everything spiraled so fast. The posts, the comments, people telling me I was the victim. And I liked it. I liked being protected. She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie. But the guilt didn't go away, she said. Not even when I tried to drown it out. I sat across from her, not touching her, not softening anything. What do you want, Kelsey? I asked quietly. She looked up at me then, really looked, and I saw something different in her eyes. Not the girl who craved attention, not the teenager who lived online, not the daughter who'd been fed lies to feel secure. Someone older, sadder, more awake. I want to start over, she said. Not with Mom and Dad, with you. Even if it's slow, even if you never forgive me, even if all I can do is just be here. For the first time in months, I breathed. Not a full breath, not a forgiving one, but a breath that didn't hurt. You came alone, I said. That matters. They'd kill me if they knew, she said with a faint, tired smile. But I didn't want them here. I didn't want them to ruin this too. We talked for almost an hour. About school. About how weird the house felt now. About how our parents were more focused on controlling the story than fixing the damage. About how she'd decided, quietly, privately, that she didn't want to be their pawn anymore. When she stood to leave, she asked, barely above a whisper, Can I come back? Not as the sister who took, but maybe the sister who's trying to give something back. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just opened the door for her, and she walked out quietly, pulling her hood up as she disappeared down the stairs. 2 weeks later, I went into labor. Labor was long, painful, raw, but quiet. Beautifully, mercifully quiet. No pounding at the door, no truck in the parking lot, no one yelling that I'd regret cutting them off. Just my husband holding my hand, just nurses and soft voices, just the two of us, and a baby who screamed his way into the world with perfect lungs and a full head of dark hair. When they placed him in my arms, I felt something shatter, something old, brittle, inherited. For the first time in months, I didn't feel watched. I felt free. Mom didn't call. Dad didn't text. Kelsey didn't post anything. But she came. Not with cameras, not with an audience, not with dramatic speeches. She brought food she'd made herself, burnt on the edges, under-seasoned, almost entirely inedible, but she tried. She washed dishes without being asked, folded tiny shirts, sat with me through the first night when I cried from exhaustion and fear and love all tangled up together. She didn't talk about my parents. She didn't push anything. She just stayed. Every visit after that was the same. Quiet, gentle, real. She stopped posting selfies with Luna, stopped tagging me in sad girl videos, stopped performing grief. Instead, she started bringing used baby books, hand-me-down toys from neighbors, things that didn't photograph well, but things we actually needed. One evening, she brought an old photo album. Inside were pictures I hadn't seen in years. Me holding her as a newborn, me feeding her a bottle, helping her get dressed for Halloween, brushing her hair before school, notes I'd written her when she was in middle school, little things like, "You're brave," and "Don't let anyone tell you you're small." She ran her fingers over one of the pictures, eyes soft. "I forgot who you were for a while," she said. "I think I forgot who I was too." I didn't cry, but something inside me warmed. For the first time, she wasn't the little sister who got the car. She was the little sister I used to protect. The little sister who was finally seeing the truth for herself. The morning we were discharged from the hospital, I heard a knock. I thought it was Kelsey. It was, but she wasn't alone. My parents stood behind her. They weren't angry. They weren't puffed up or defensive. They weren't holding casseroles or advice lists. They looked scared. Kelsey looked determined. She met my eyes and said quietly, "They have something to say." They stood there like three ghosts on my welcome mat, Kelsey in front, shoulders stiff, and my parents behind her, looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. No shouting, no guilt trips, no arms crossed, no righteousness. Just quiet, uneasy breathing. Three people who were used to walking through my life without knocking, suddenly waiting for permission to speak. I didn't step aside, didn't invite them in. I just held my son closer, adjusting the blanket around him. He was warm and soft against my chest, his tiny fingers curled in a fist near his cheek. His breathing was steady, peaceful, completely unaware that the lineage of chaos stood outside like an unsettled debt. Kelsey looked at me, brow tight with something between fear and hope. "They're here because I told them they couldn't keep pretending," she said. "If they want to be part of anything, they have to say it." Her mother, my mother, trembled a little. She didn't step forward. She didn't reach for the baby. She didn't try to hug me. For once in her life, she didn't assume she was welcome. It was my dad who moved first. He stepped past Kelsey by half an inch, but stopped himself as though there was an invisible line drawn on the ground, one he finally knew he didn't have the right to cross. He cleared his throat, but his voice came out smaller than I'd ever heard it. I was wrong. 3 words, blunt, unpolished, stripped of excuses. For a second, I didn't even breathe. This was a man who had never apologized for anything in his life, not when he forgot birthdays, not when he lost jobs, not when he snapped at us, not when he made decisions that weren't his to make. He saw any mistake as someone else's fault, any correction as disrespect. And now he stood there, eyes slightly glassy, hands trembling, saying words I didn't know he was capable of saying. He glanced up at me again, softer. "I was wrong," he repeated, quieter this time, like the words weren't meant to impress me, but to finally tell the truth. The world didn't tilt or spin. Thunder didn't clap. It wasn't cinematic. It was just human, flawed, late, but real. My mom stepped forward then, not enough to cross the invisible line, but enough that I could see her face fully. Her eyes were red, not from crying now, but from crying earlier. "I'm sorry," she said. "For everything. Not just the money, not just the car. All of it." The words came out uneven, like she was forcing them through years of pride she didn't know how to let go of. She wrung her hands. "We thought we were helping," she whispered. "We thought we could take over until you were ready, and we didn't think you'd make it on your own." That landed harder than I expected, because it was honest, brutally honest. "And you did," she added. "You made it, better than we ever could have." My throat went tight, not in forgiveness, in disbelief, in grief, in exhaustion, in all the emotions I'd been swallowing for months. My mom reached into her purse, slowly, carefully, as if sudden movement might spook me. She pulled out a folded envelope, held it with both hands, didn't force it into mine. "This is for you," she said. I didn't move to take it at first. My fingers clutched my son's blanket tighter. She didn't push. She just waited. I reached out with my free hand, took the envelope, and stepped back. Inside was a printed bank receipt, a wire transfer into a new account with only my name on it. The amount wasn't everything we'd lost, but it was close. Under the printed line, in my father's handwriting, "We sold the car." Kelsey looked down, her shoes scuffing lightly against each other. "They didn't want to," she said in a small voice. "But I told them they couldn't say sorry with words and keep Luna with actions." She lifted her chin and looked at me directly. "I told them sorry had to cost something, or it wouldn't mean anything." My chest tightened. Not forgiveness, not healing. Something quiet, something shifting. A door cracking open, but barely. Kelsey tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "If you're not ready," she said, "that's okay. If you don't want to let them in, that's okay too. I just thought you should hear it. Because maybe they'll never be different people, but maybe they're learning how to try." I looked at the three of them, my new baby warm against me, the apartment behind me small but safe, the past standing in front of me, trembling, humbled, uncertain. I didn't invite them in. I didn't reach out, didn't soften, didn't pretend we were suddenly okay. But I didn't close the door either. "Thank you," I said simply. Not forgiveness, not acceptance, just acknowledgement. They nodded. For once, they didn't try to push, didn't insist on hugging, didn't argue for a timeline. They backed away slowly. My mom whispered, "Congratulations, he's beautiful." My dad whispered, "We'll wait for you." Kelsey gave me the faintest, tiredest smile. Small, real, nothing like the ones she crafted for the camera. They left, quietly, without theatrics, without promises they couldn't keep. And the silence that followed wasn't suffocating. It was spacious. For the next few days, nothing happened. No texts, no voicemails, no unexpected knocks, no cars parked outside. Kelsey kept visiting, not every day, not with gifts or performance, just small things. She folded laundry, washed dishes, rocked the baby while I showered, asked about feeding schedules and sleep stretches, but never tried to tell me how to do anything. She stopped wearing guilt like armor, stopped seeking pity or attention, started being someone I recognized from old photos, the little sister I used to watch over. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from my mom. Just one. "If there's ever a time you want us to see the baby, we'll wait for the invitation. No pressure. We're proud of you." No emojis, no guilt, no manipulation. Just words. I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because healing doesn't happen on a deadline. Months passed. The baby started smiling, then giggling. Our apartment still smelled like formula and warm laundry and takeout, but it finally felt like home. Kelsey became Aunt Kay, a title she earned, not one she borrowed. One morning, I let my parents come by. They sat on the edge of the couch like visitors in a waiting room, hands resting in their laps, eyes careful, quiet. They didn't ask to hold the baby, didn't tell me what I should do, didn't look for things to criticize. They just looked at him, looked at me. My dad's hands were knotted together the entire time, knuckles white from restraint. My mom blinked a lot, like she was holding back tears she didn't have the right to shed in front of me yet. They stayed 20 minutes. Then they thanked me for letting them visit. When they left, they didn't walk away like people who thought they'd reclaimed something. They walked away like people who finally understood something they should have known all along. This wasn't their house. This wasn't their life. This wasn't their baby. He was mine. And they were just lucky I ever opened the door again.